me tell y'all a true story about one of the greatest high school running backs of all time, a brother by the name of Marcus Dupree from my home state here in Mississippi. I think of Marcus Dupree because, as I alluded to on another video about NIL and transfer portal, this man was so nice that they offered him a damn oil well. Somebody did. Now, I was mistaken in the source of that info. I think I had told y'all that was stated in his 30 for 30, the best that never was. But actually, that information was revealed in an interview he did with Dan Lebertard. Okay, so excuse me for that. But with Nick Saban's comments and all this talk about NIL and transfer portal, I went ahead and rewatched that 30 for 30. Because with Nick Saban doing this, crying about NIL and transfer portal, and all these other coaches doing it as well, it just really made me think about Marcus Dupree. And after rewatching, excuse me, that documentary, it made me feel more strongly than ever that old system was flawed. And I'm being nice by just saying flawed. Really, NIL and transfer portal may have saved this man, Marcus Dupree. He may have gone on to have a Hall of Fame career if it wasn't for that. Roll with me. First of all, his story is so intriguing because not only was he an incredible football player, where he's from is notable. Philadelphia, Mississippi, Neshoba County. If you know anything about the civil rights movement, you know that is the place where the three civil rights workers, Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, were murdered by the Ku Klux Klan. Basically handed over to the Klan by local police, particularly a police officer by the name of Cecil Price. And Marcus Dupree's story is so fucking crazy that he was childhood friends with Cecil Price's son. That's crazy. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get into it. This man, Marcus Dupree, should have never gone to anybody college in the first place. So that's bullshit right there. This rule that you got to be 3 years removed from your high school graduating class before the NFL even goddamn make you eligible to be drafted it's bullshit. Because some people can go ahead and go play. He was one of them. By the time this man was 18 years old, yes, he was NFL ready. The man was 6'3", 230 pounds. He ran a 4.3. It could bench press, excuse me. He could bench press 400 pounds 10 times. 6'3", 230, running a 4.3, benching 400 pounds 10 times. I don't even know what his max is then. You'll be hard pressed to find some motherfuckers in the league that can do that now. He could do that as a high school kid in the 80s. So that's one thing. This whole bullshit rule that's going to force you to go to school. And that man, later on when he was in school, he revealed he didn't like school. But they were forcing him to go to school. Why? Because the NFL treats college football like its farm system, and they got this buddy thing together. And it's really a racket. That's what it is. That's bullshit. But let's keep it going. Since he was had to go to college, his recruitment was crazy. Look at what this man was offered. Okay. I told you about the oil well already. Again, he detailed that in Dan Levitar interview. Okay. But this is a quote from Dupree. He said, people start coming out the woodworks with money. They came at his mama with bags of money. Someone offered her a car. Okay. Billy Watkins, who's a journalist, stated that players were being bought, players were being given things. It was dirty. So players, plural. So it ain't just Marcus Dupree who was being offered money. This was what was going on. Okay. Tom Good, who was a recruiter for Ole Miss, said that Warner Alfred, who was the Ole Miss AD at the time, asked him what it would take to sign Marcus Dupree. And Tom Good said that he told the AD about $100,000, $150,000. Somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000, which is about, if you go into the $150,000 scale, that's about $445,000 today. That's the kind of shit folks were willing to pay for a top back then. Again, as I said on the previous segment, miss me with the bullshit, Nick Saban. He's been getting Marcus Dupree type of guys. Derrick Henry sound like a Marcus Dupree, don't it? What you think Derrick Henry got to go to Alabama? But I digress. A man by the name of Lucius Salmon, who was an assistant coach with Oklahoma, he said if you get the thought that one school is doing something that shouldn't be done, now you're going to do it too. Marcus Dupree ended up going to Oklahoma. Marcus Dupree had a friend who said people offered him things to try to convince Marcus to go to their school. Come on, man. Including cars. A journalist named Sid Salter said there were rumors of briefcases full of cash and girls on airplanes. Curly Connors, who was Marcus Dupree's uncle, said everybody in the race offered something. Everybody who was in the race to get Marcus Dupree offered something. And if you asked them to offer something, you weren't in the race. He said they offered him a job and $40,000 in cash. Now, he said that he was pushing them towards Southern Miss because they were showing them that they really wanted them. Obviously, that means Southern Miss was trying to drop the bag on them. Come on now. While at OU, like I said, he ended up going to Oklahoma, but he got up there and he would get into it with their legendary coach, Barry Switzer. Barry Switzer admits that from day one, Marcus Dupree was his best player. Again, 6'3", 230, running the 4'3", can bench like a motherfucker. Hell yeah, that's your best player. But Barry Switzer did not want he didn't want it to be perceived that he was playing favorites, like with his upperclassmen and shit like that. He didn't want his upperclassmen to think that he just letting this freshman come in and do whatever he want. So he was riding Marcus Dupree. And he was getting on him for shit that really wasn't even his fault. And Marcus Dupree didn't like that shit. They threatened to switch him to tight end. He's like, I'm the number one running back in the country. What are you talking? And look, y'all, again, hold on. To be the number one running back then, show enough meant something. Because they ain't like this pass happy shit today. Folks running the wishbone and I formation and all that shit back then. But he up here on some cap shit and trying to act like Marcus Dupree wasn't that stuff. See, you can't do that today because these boys are transfer on your ass. And that's another reason why these coaches up here crying about transfer portal. They can't lie to these boys anymore and sit up here and do these boys in the kind of way, and the boys just sit there and take it. When all you gotta do, tell the truth. Tell them the truth. That man was the best player you had. Fuck what the upper class talking about. They better get with the program. Let's roll. He's gifted. Barry Switzer admits later on in the documentary that he was wrong about that. He regrets that. But see, Marcus Dupree, when he was threatening to move around on his ass after that freshman year, Ken Fairley, who was a reverend, turned out to be infamous. He said he drove Marcus and his mama up there to OU, and they met with Coach Switzer and said, Switzer asked basically, what can I do for you to keep Marcus here? And the mama asked for a double wide trail, and I'll be damned if she ain't get it. Again, miss me with the bullshit, Coach Saban. I bet you done had you a Marcus Dupree situation. All them boys, Nick Saban, Alabama beginning, and you have guys stacked up at the wide receiver position and the running back position, and they ain't playing and stuff like that. You know damn well them boys been disgruntled and stuff like that, especially now in this transfer portal era. You gotta do something to keep them happy, keep them there. Come on, man. Eventually, it just was too toxic. The relationship between Marcus Dupree and Barry Switzer. So after he got hurt one time, he just never came back. Like he had this crazy concussion against Texas in his sophomore season, and just never went back to OU. Tomorrow he went ghost, like for real, for real. That FBI looking for him and everything. This man was ducked off at Mississippi College. Now my folks here in Mississippi, y'all know what I'm talking about. Man was ducked off over there, but never went back. That reverend that I spoke of, Ken Fairley, tried to nudge him towards Southern Miss, but again, with those transfer rules as they were in the past, that man wasn't gonna be able to transfer and just play. He's going to sit out. But since he was transferring like mid-season, he was going to sit out the rest of that season and the next season. So like a year and a half, he's going to have to be without football. So he ended up not going back to school at all and went to the USFL. He ended up getting a big contract for that time in the USFL, which was $5 million over 5 years, which is $13.7 million a day. But that guy, Ken Fairley, ended up taking his money, ended up taking his checks and claimed he was investing it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of shiesty shit going on. Marcus Dupree ended up blowing out his knee in a horrific injury in his second year. Stayed out 5 years until he made a comeback. Finally was drafted. Played with in the NFL with the Rams. Played 15 games over 2 years. But then he was cut. He was 28 years old. And his career was totally over. He ended up having to come back to Philadelphia, Mississippi and get his CDL. And he had to go through that piece of shit Cecil Price. I'm going to say piece of shit. They make it seem like he was a good man. Fuck that. Fucking terrorists, hell. You helping terrorists. Aiding terror. You can aid terrorists in the United States of America and get away with it. Shit. He went to prison, but shit, he get out and it's just cool. That's the United States. But he had to go through that, man, to get his CDL. Say the man, Cecil Price, give him no problem. Gave to it with the quickness. Now, luckily, I mean, Dupree ain't one of these guys that went to prison or the guy coked out and OD'd or anything like that. Documentary says in 2010, he went on to join a crew to clean up the BP oil spill. I've checked him out online. Seems like he's doing well. But look how different this man's life could have been, y'all, in this era. First of all, he needed to be paid. He needed some money. This man came from poverty. This man came from that shit. Man, brother had special needs. In the documentary, this big, strong motherfucker breaks down crying just thinking about his brother. Because he had all these physical gifts and his brother didn't. He said that's part of why he played so hard, because he wanted to play for his brother. So he needed to get paid to try to help his family. Imagine coming out of high school 18 years old with those measurables. What kind of NIL he could get. Now imagine he goes to a big school like OU and has a coach on the bullshit that Barry Switzer was on. Barry Switzer admits he was on the bullshit. And now imagine with transfer portal rules like they are today, that Marcus Dupree doesn't have to sit out or doesn't have to have that threat lingering that he would have to sit out. So now he gets to go to a school of his choosing and keep playing. Stay within some structure. Be coached for real, for real. Maybe he's in better shape. Maybe he doesn't have these things wrong with his body that leads to that horrific knee injury. Or maybe the knee injury happens, but he's been coached well enough with a coaching staff that he trusts and that's really doing right by him. And now his body in better shape, and now he can bounce back from that. And then he gets to go on into the NFL without having to sit out 5 years. What might we have seen from this man from Philadelphia, Mississippi? See, Mississippi already got arguably the greatest running back of all time in Walter Payton. But we should have had another with Marcus Dupree. So for those of y'all that are out there and you feel like I feel about NIL and transfer portal, you feel like these are good things, you feel like these men and women should be paid. These men and women should be able to transfer. Hell, their coaches leave them. Their coaches do it in a heartbeat. Nick Saban sat up there and swore up and down he wasn't leaving LSU for the Miami Dolphins. And that was cap. Nick Saban sat up there and swore up and down that he wasn't leaving the Miami Dolphins for Alabama. And that was cap. We see Urban Meyer has done it. We see Lincoln Riley recently has done it. We saw the coach that went from Notre Dame down to LSU. That's what they do. Just when they think the grass is greener or the bag is bigger. So why not let these kids do that? Why we telling the young men and women, you gotta power through a messed up situation and don't quit. Shit, sometimes you need to quit a fucked up situation and get to a better situation. You shouldn't quit like just being soft. You shouldn't quit just when you're facing a little adversity. But when stuff is just going wrong, you see clearly you've made a bad decision, you should move on. So I support these things. And the story of Marcus Dupree is one of those things that backs up my feelings on NIL and transfer portal. So once again, Nick Saban can miss me with his crying about it again. He's just trying to get some more money out of his booster. Coach Prime can stop crying about this NIL. He was one of the 80s guys. If Eric Dickerson was offered all that and Mark Dupree was offered all that, Coach Prime was offered some. So he came from poverty as well. I don't blame him if he took it. Let these boys get this money. They're making money for everybody else. Let these men and women transfer if they so choose. That's what all the other students do. Coaches, tell the truth to your players. Coach your players with love. Coach your players hard. If they so choose not accept hard coaching, it's going to catch up with them. It's going to catch up with them. You shouldn't want a player that doesn't want to accept hard coaching. If they want to move around because you're coaching them hard, they're going to hurt your program anyway. Let them move around. If they hopped in the transfer portal and I got a whiff that they just don't want to have hard, good coaching, hell, I don't want them on my team anyway. But in some of these cases, in many of these cases, that's not what it is. And we can't forget that. The players should have the same rights as the coaches. Or as they say in the church, they have all rights and privileges of any other member of the church. Because having the right and the privilege to receive funds or to transfer may have saved. Fuck it. It would have saved Marcus Dupree. Put it on something. My kids wanted me to tell y'all to make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me across all social media platforms, like the videos, and share them. Did I forget anything?
And turn on the post notifications.
Y'all heard them. And also, visit StatementTeesLLC.com and shop with us. That's Statement Tees. Every t-shirt you wear
makes a statement.